welcome back to Three in Harmony. Malcolm and I are here in Winchester with our dear friend Andy Lumsden. We've already had two fantastic programmes learning about Andy's time as a chorister through to his time as assistant organist, director of music in Lichfield. And now here we are in Winchester and we want to find out all about Winchester. Over to you, Andy.
Thank you very much indeed. So I came to Winchester in 2002. I've been here as a boy at school.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I first came, I was bumping into members of staff in the close, and I kept saying, "Morning, sir." I'm thinking, actually, I don't have to say that anymore, do I? And of course, I was following on from David Hill, who had built such an amazing reputation with the recordings and everything with the choir, which I was quite daunted about to start with.
Yeah.
But actually, I decided I was going to go a slightly different route. I wasn't going to do quite so many recordings and focus a little bit more on the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And of course, it is a phenomenal building. It's funny. It's not the prettiest on the outside.
But on
the slightly stubby little tower. It's not that little. If you look at it, it's massive. Inside, though, it is stunning. This huge length of nave.
Yeah.
Somebody said you can almost see the curvature of the earth on it because it's so long.
I always used to think that, because the opposite was said about Salisbury, that Salisbury beautiful on the outside, but a little bit duller on the inside. And somebody once told me that if you could shove the inside of Winchester into the outside of Salisbury, you'd have the best cathedral ever. Just a thought.
Well, I mean, outside is absolutely stunning. Isn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, actually, Salisbury might not be as long, but actually, I think it's about the same volume. Because Winchester's very long and narrow. Whereas Salisbury's much more open. You've got more open transepts, and you've got the extra transepts and all sorts of things. So I think in volume it's probably not dissimilar.
No, maybe.
So, I came working with the Pilgrim School with the Choristers, and of course, for a time with Dear Malcolm. Who was in charge of the Choristers, and we had a lot of laughs.
We had a lot of.
And we started doing some joint things
together, joint services,
which was great. We came across to you in College Chapel. You came across to us in the Cathedral.
They were great.
Often bringing the whole chapel choir with you as well, and so it was these fantastic services. We always did big music, and it was it was.
And
wonderful.
when we weren't making music, we'd be in the Wickham Arms.
I've heard of that. Yes, I think yes. I dread to think just how much money has gone through it. But it's what a lovely pub that is. Are we being sponsored? But and it was really convivial, and the college staff from the college would be there, the cathedral staff would be there, and it was just a lovely time just to chat everything through and just really enjoy our time.
And it's probably worth mentioning that the distinguishing mark in terms of jumpers for the choristers. So the choristers would wear the red jumpers, the quiristers would wear the blue jumpers. Yeah. And then anybody who wasn't a quirister or a chorister wore a green jumper.
Absolutely, this was in the Pilgrim School.
And
it was actually only relatively recently, I say, just before I arrived, that actually the choristers wore red. They originally just wore green.
I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking my memory of when we used to do Southern Cathedrals Festivals with you guys was that they wore green. Maybe I thought I was colourblind. Just hallucinating. Green.
But it was the headmaster we had when I arrived, Brian Rees, was the wonderful. He was determined, because of course the choristers would often be out doing stuff in the evenings. They would take them up to do a recording session in London or concert or whatever. And so the next day, the staff would suddenly see a whole group of kids going, and they said, well, actually, what they need to do is have their colour jumper so that they know that they're the choristers, so that they know that they've been out, and therefore they've just got to tread a little more carefully in a lesson. So
makes perfect sense.
And it's and it does.
You two both worked in Winchester, and I didn't. So just describe to me, what is the actual difference between a quirister and a chorister?
That's a very important question, actually. So the choristers sing in the cathedral choir.
Yeah.
And the Pilgrims is unusual in that it's got basically two professional top lines, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The choristers who sing in the cathedral, and then the quiristers who sing in Winchester College in the chapel choir.
Yeah.
And the two choirs work very happily alongside one another.
Because we were doing different things. We were very much a sort of diocesan cathedral doing all that sort of stuff. You had more chance to develop concerts and taking the boys out. So it they were basically, and you did services in the college chapel and all that, but you could develop it probably more easily than we could.
So were you competing at Voice Trial Day against each other,
I think I can safely say that in 10 years or 11 years actually, we never fell out over the choice of a chorister or chorister. I think a lot of it was sort of decided in advance, in that we used to do pre-auditions, didn't we?
Yeah. And when it actually came to the audition day, the parents were asked which choir they would like to, and there was this system whereby they could say Quirister only, so that would be the only offer they would listen to. Quirister preference, which means that the choristers could have the first go at it, but the cathedral, if for whatever reason the choristers didn't want it, or couldn't take the boy or whatever for numbers, the cathedral could come in.
And vice versa.
And then vice versa. Then there was no preference, which meant the parents threw it up in the air. And then chorister preference and chorister only.
Yeah.
And that was always decided, sometimes just on the day. It was so that when we met, having done the auditions, we actually knew exactly where each one was going to. Yeah. Now, I distinctly remember one year, actually, where we had a preference. We both had preferences. There was two boys that we both wanted, and they were both in preferences. And we appointed one, you appointed the other. This was on the Saturday. On the Monday, we heard that actually the one that you took wanted to be a chorister, and the one that we took wanted to be a quirister. So we swapped them over. And then about a week later, they both withdrew.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Presumably the commitment between the quiristers and the choristers, was it different? I mean...
It was. I mean, we rehearsed at the same times, roughly speaking, didn't we?
Every morning?
Sometimes morning, sometimes lunchtime. I think.
Yeah. Sometimes
2 days.
Both. Sometimes both. Yeah.
Sundays both.
Yeah.
The choristers only sang 4 services a week, so we did a full Coralium song on a Tuesday. The boys did a Eucharist on their own on a Thursday, and then the choristers would sing a Compline on a Saturday night, and then a Sunday morning full service. And of course, the other difference was that you had the professional lay clerks, and we had, older boys from the school who would sing the lower parts.
And also, of course, you only had term time commitments.
We only had.
We, of course, had the full whack.
Yeah.
So
right the way through that.
I wasn't at all jealous.
Yeah, mind you, oddly enough, when I first went to Winchester, I started missing doing the Christmas services.
Oh yes, no, I'm sure.
And Easter, of course, Holy Week.
Yeah. And for the choristers, it was actually a good time. We called it choir time. They would often at the end of term just go away for a few days, go nights, and then they would come back, and they would have the run of the school. Yeah. So no problems about queuing to get on computers or playing on the game on there, or all that sort of thing. Take them out to the pantomime. Yeah. We occasionally went singing on the Cunard or whatever Cunard boat was happened to be in Southampton, which was fun. So we tried to make it as fun as possible for Andy. I'm sure you did in Salisbury with the same.
Actually, I do remember that we were invited to sing at the launch of one. I think it was a P&O thing. And I remember going down to Southampton. There was this whacking great, and there was this bizarre sort of festival going on. There were elephants and there were snakes and there was goodness knows what. Anyway, the deal was we didn't get paid, but we were invited to stay overnight on board this ship, which sailed out round the Solent and round the Isle of Wight. Well, Princess Anne did all the business, and she stayed overnight. And about 2:00 in the morning, I was in my cabin, and I got a knock on the door, and it was a security guy, and he said, could you come out for a second? And it turned out that 2 of my boys had knocked on Princess Anne's door. So, if you think that cathedral choristers are angels, think again.
Right.
That's wonderful.
And actually, thank goodness they're not. Because
exactly.
That is what makes them really amazing. That character.
Exactly.
And yes, it can be a bit annoying, but actually you need that spark. You need that bit of mischievousness.
You need a bit of naughtiness.
Absolutely.
And I also remember a wonderful competition at the Southern Cathedrals Festival, which of course is sung by Winchester, Salisbury and Chichester. And there was always a sort of feeling of we can be better than them. I was always worried, and particularly when I started, and David Hill to start off with was director of music at Winchester, I was always worried that the other choirs would know everything so much better than we did, until I discovered we used to have a joint rehearsal, didn't we? One joint rehearsal for a whole 4-day festival. There'd be one joint rehearsal, and you'd pitch up, and people would be sort of wading their way through the mire, not saying very, very much indeed. Yeah. So that was actually, it was.
And of course, I mean, you had already got girls at that stage, and the girls took a very small part in the festival. Yeah. So it was actually a lot of the work fell on the boys and the men. So 3 concerts or something like that.
It was a heck of a lot.
A hell of a lot to get through. Now, of course, well, we both have separate girls' choirs. Chichester, of course, now has girls in with the main choir. And so the load has been quite shifted quite well with the girls doing more, which is as it should be.
Well, I always felt. You know how in a cathedral choir you start at the beginning of the year and you gradually build up, your choir becomes more confident, more competent. I always felt that we had the SCF hanging over us a little bit, that in the summer term when you should be enjoying all these big anthems and we were learning hours and hours of new repertoire, which we weren't going to sing again. Yes. But we had to make sure we knew it by the time we got to the SCF.
And we did, I mean, I think in your time as well, we did look at moving the time of the SCF because particularly as school term started to finish earlier, we were having to stay on that much longer. I remember that one year the SCF finished 2.5 weeks after the school term. And of course that costs a lot of money for the cathedrals to pay to keep the school going.
Sure.
So we did look at other times of the year. To try and fit it in. And one we thought of was the bank holiday weekend at the end of May. But then it just turned out, well, of course, Pentecost can fall at that point if it's late. And everybody's got to be in their own cathedral for that. And there were always reasons why it sadly couldn't move. So, but what I think we've done, or they're doing now, is they've really brought it a lot further forward into earlier July, so that there's less time for. There
was always a great tradition of commissioning new music for the SCF.
Oh yeah.
Is that something that...
It's carried on for a long time. I don't think it's done it for a bit, but certainly we've had all sorts of composers do all sorts of things. We had Francis Jackson writing that. We had Tariq O'Regan. I mean, you can name it. John Taverner, Jonathan Hart. I mean, all sorts.
Well, I think you very kindly asked me when I was leaving Salisbury, and I think the last SCF was at Winchester, and you asked me to write a piece for you, which has disappeared into oblivion.
Sure it has.
But it was always great fun. It was hard work for 3 or 4 days, full on. But actually, it was in a sense a lovely. And then we always finished with a big concert Saturday night, and on the Sunday we'd all go back to our cathedrals and have our last day of term. And all the festivities that go with that.
So, it was very special.
Oh yeah. And we did Speminalium and things. I remember once, we did the Monteverdi Vespers in here in sort of 20, whenever it was, mid 2010s, which was great because we have choirs all over there. And so actually really it was, the chances to do that you couldn't do with your own just by yourself. So it threw open all sorts of opportunities.
The girls' choir at Winchester, that happened during your time?
Yeah, it started just before I came.
Okay.
And it was decided quite rightly, I think, at the time, that there was this age range where the cathedral wasn't offering anything, and that was the sort of secondary school years. And of course, with pilgrims being boys only, we couldn't have girls at that age. So they decided, quite rightly, to go to local schools within about a 20-mile radius of Winchester, simply for logistics, because of getting in for rehearsals. And they would do one of the Sunday services, which took pressure off the boys, and then they would have 2 rehearsals during the week. And that's how it basically started. Now it's a little bit more, but some of the more musical girls say, we need to do more, we want to do more. But the problem there is, of course, when they're in their secondary school years, they've got lots of other activities they want to do. And particularly, obviously, when it gets to GCSEs and up into A-levels, you've got to give them time for that. And we used to give study leave very freely for that sort of thing. But we found that balance was probably about right for what we had for that age group. Now, I know that some people would deem that as not being equal. Yeah, in terms of time, absolutely. In terms of opportunity, no, because the girls still do recordings, they still do broadcasts, they still do tours. So they get all the other benefits of it as well.
So was the age range sort of 11 to 17? Or
it started, I think, 11 to 16.
Yeah.
And then we decided that actually with the girls starting a new school aged 11, they often found starting in choir that year quite difficult. An additional problem. And we also found that at the other end, 16, there was then 2 years with nothing for those who might want to do a choral scholarship to university. So we shifted it round a year, so it's 12 till 17.
That's a good idea.
And that seemed to have worked.
And then they had a free year, well not a free year, but they had a year during their A-level year when they could be focusing
when they're focusing on the A-levels.
On the A-levels.
And we kept in touch with them, and they would occasionally come back and see them from time to time.
Sure.
So it seemed to work very well. So and there were a great addition. As ever, there was lots of huffing and puffing, but very quickly that all just disappeared when they realised what amazing other things they brought to the whole cathedral.
Absolutely.
And now virtually every cathedral collegiate chapel has a girls' choir, doesn't it? Or has mixed top line.
Quite right too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, Salisbury, because you had girls at the school, so you were very much
we were absolute parity.
Yeah.
They were at the school, and that was Richard Seale's thing that they would have exactly the same experience as the boys, which I think now they do completely. In my time, it was still a bit pointed towards the boys, but
that's good.
It was tough at the time, I remember, and when I first started, the Chichester people were not very happy about girls being included in SCF and things like that, and that's all changed now. And you and I used to get ridiculed if boys and girls were mixed at any time at Wells and Salisbury, weren't they?
I can remember.
The campaign for the traditional
and all of
preservation of the traditional cathedral choir.
I remember once doing a recording where it was a mixed choir of boys and girls. I decided to use my top 8 boys and my top 8 girls. And on the CD sleeve, we just put initials, we didn't put names. So people didn't know what the gender was, know. And I got a letter from somebody saying they demanded to know which were the boys and which were the girls. And if they bought a can of Campbell's tomato soup, they would want to know the contents. I could not believe it. Like I wrote back a very polite letter saying, well, actually, I think the musical quality is actually what we should be looking for.
We always used to have to put the gender of the choir on the music list for a while. You had to say whether it was girls or boys.
We had an asterisk and a sword.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I remember some woman calling in to Salisbury one day and saying, which choir is singing? Is it the proper choir or is it the girls? You had all that.
Yeah.
Awful.
That's all. I think
it's all gone.
That's all gone. I hope so. And quite right too.
Yeah. Because there are some years the girls were stronger than the boys. That's by the way it works. So it goes up and down, vice versa.
So 22 years at Winchester.
Yeah.
And now you're a free man.
Now, 3 of us.
The 3
stooges who are free men.
Absolutely.
So do you look back fondly with your whole Winchester time? And that's
pretty much
a loaded question.
Pretty much all of it. Let me put it that way. No, I think as ever with these things, the bit I miss, and I'm sure we all do, is the music. And the daily working with kids and the men in the choir. I mean, watching those kids grow was just a privilege, a real privilege, and seeing one of them stand up, age in year 8, singing in front of 2,000 people in the cathedral without really batting an eyelid. I mean, we all know adults who will be absolutely petrified just standing up, giving any speech at anything. This builds into their sort of their training, and it's fantastic. And I really miss it. I don't miss the 8 o'clock in the morning practices. I have to say, but because they were always far more awake than I was. So that daily thing, I don't miss the endless meetings, meetings that could have been decided in 5 minutes on a phone call.
Absolutely. But I think that's the life of the Cathedral Director of Music now, isn't it?
Seems to be.
Meetings, safeguarding. I remember Richard Seale telling me that he used to get up in the morning and do the boys' practice, and then he'd go and have coffee, and then he'd go shopping, and then he'd go for a bicycle ride, and then get ready for evensong.
Far cry from
today.
Quite different. So now I'm just really enjoying variety of doing loads of different things, bits of...
Somebody told me you're a radio star.
Well, it's a radio star, but I do have a radio show, yes. And
which channel is that?
It's called Voice FM in Southampton.
Okay.
It is available on the internet. You can tune in Tuesdays, 1 o'clock, Voice FM. It's
what
there.
sort of music do you play?
It's classic. Well, it's classical in the sort of classic FM
Right,
phrase,
yeah.
So I try and put in proper classical music, but fill it out with the odd James Bond theme or a bit of ballet or a bit of video game music or all that sort of thing. And I'm absolutely loving it. It's great. I'm given free rein.
Brilliant.
And
is that an hour show?
It's an hour show. Yeah. And it's really so easy to do. I was a bit scared of the technology, but I can record it on a laptop from anywhere. And in fact, I have done. Various places I've hosted it from. You can't do it live from distance, but you can sort of record it and fit it into the schedule.
Yeah.
A travel lodge in Worcester, where the fire alarm kept on going off. An Airbnb in Lichfield. The music director's office at St Thomas's, 5th Avenue. The guest bathroom of a friend of mine in Charleston. It's just extraordinary the technology you can do. Well, quite. Yeah. But where you can do it is fantastic, and it's this wonderful station where it has huge presenters. We're all volunteers. There's only one paid chap who runs it, but the amount of stuff they cover, they broadcast 18 hours a day of their own stuff.
Wow!
And it's a fantastic.
Are some of the shows live?
Oh yes, and if I can, I will go down and do it live.
And do you do all the desk and all of that?
Well, it's so easy. It's one fader and a mouse, basically, because it's all on the computer. It's all been timed, so you have a little window which tells how long the gap you've got to fill with your speech. And so you just fade up your mic, you do your wobbling, you put your mouse on the play button, click it, put the fader down, off it goes.
So you know exactly how long you're allowed to speak for between tracks.
Yeah.
So it's all.
And I obviously choose the music, so I realised that I probably need about 6 minutes of speech. Okay. And of course, all the music's already on the computer with the timings. Yeah. So I juggle the pieces around, just make sure I get to about 6 minutes, and then I know, right, I've got enough time now to say various bits and pieces, and off it goes. I tried to record it yesterday as it was at home, but Chester, our Cocker Spaniel, decided that he was not for lying low on this, so it took rather longer than I was hoping.
The dangers of having a Cocker Spaniel.
The dangers indeed, absolutely.
And you're doing lots of. I know you went back to New College last term and ran music, which must have been
that was absolutely lovely. It was amazing. Of course, it was only an 8-week term, so which just flew past.
Part-time.
Yes, quite. But the school term started at the beginning of September. University term didn't start till something like the 11th of October. So I had 5 weeks of rehearsals with the boys. Now, with hindsight, I probably should have worked things out a bit better because we did get ahead with a lot of music, but I was finding we were just we played silly games. And we had it was a chance to get to know each other, really, which was very good. But of course, being back in where I started with the organ, looking up at the organ, conducting.
Fantastic.
And my parents are both buried in the Cloisters. So it was a lovely occasion to be.
And you're giving organ recitals as well?
Yes, indeed. Been to America to do some over there, conducting choirs over there, and all round been working a bit with Winchester Cathedral Choir from time to time, which has been huge fun. They're doing a wonderful job. Jane's doing a wonderful job there. And working with other choirs, playing here, there, and everywhere, accompanying choruses. I just love the variety of it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
You have a big smile on your face, which tells me you're loving life.
It is. It's been quite a change, and of course, I've recently got married as well. So couldn't be much. Frankly, could it? So,
And I don't know, but I think all of sort of our generation and people that have been cathedral directors who've now stepped away and doing other things, everyone seems happier. I don't know why that is. And I do think, and we were talking about this earlier, I think we were lucky enough to be around at a bit of a golden age. I think we all look back thinking it was great, and we probably wouldn't want to do it now.
No, exactly.
As we were talking about all the endless meetings and things, which I think most of us would agree were not necessarily pointless because there were some important topics to discuss, but quite didn't need to take up as much time as they did.
Can remember meetings at St Paul's where you'd be planning a big service and you'd talk about music in about the last 2 minutes. It'd be everything else, security
and there was a wonderful. There was a film ages ago when John Scott was there, where he was filming a meeting, and actually it was exactly that. He had about two minutes at the end, but the rest of the meeting he had a score, and he was just conducting away to himself, looking at the score while they were discussing security and all that.
Absolutely. Andy, it has been an absolute pleasure.
It's been
seeing
wonderful.
you again, but also finding out about your wonderful career.
Thank you very much.
Which
Thank
is
you for the
still
opportunity.
ongoing.
Lovely to catch up. We've all known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
Just a sort of chat.
Great to see